Several months ago, I put out a call on a crochet Facebook group and I asked, how did you get into crochet? What has it come to mean to you? In other words, what's your story? And people answered with their stories. How did you get into crochet?
Um, it started with my grandmother. Um, she used to always just be sitting in her rocking chair doing her thing, watching TV. And it was in her house, she had rafters on the ceiling and she had five or six kids and they all had three or four kids. So we had I don't know, 30 stockings on the ceiling that hung on these rafters. And she had crocheted all of them. So it was a big thing that she did. And as the granddaughters, there were three of us older girls, but she taught all of us um, something specific. She taught me to cross stitch, and she taught my cousin Ashley to crochet. I'm not really sure what the other cousin learned, if anything, but um, I never really went anywhere with that. And I didn't learn to crochet until she had passed away. And she passed away when I was like 16. So, as fate would have that, I met a boy at school and started dating him. And his mom was an avid crocheter like that. And the one day I just plopped down next to her on the floor, next to her chair, and was like, will you teach me? And she was like, oh, overjoyed at being able to pass it on to somebody. And she basically had me do a chain and then go back with single crochets and then taught me how to like chain turn and come back with half doubles and chain turn and come back with doubles. And I had this weird little scarf square thing. And for, I think it was my birthday or Christmas that year, I got like a big shoebox and it had three baby yarns, like three sport weight yarns, and an H hook and a book, like a baby book to make baby blankets. So it was really neat. And I still didn't really keep it. Like it wasn't a hobby then. I had the knowledge, but it was like, eh. And then when I was like 21, I had this girlfriend of mine. She was like a homebody. She didn't really like to go out and do things, and she was a crocheter. She could knock out a blanket in a night. I was absolutely crazy. But she sat down with me and she taught me a granny square. You just go around and around and around, and it gets bigger. And that ugly granny square is no lie, like over there in my kid's bed. But it is huge, and the joins are all terrible, and all of my growth is terrible. But my not old lady, but old lady best friend kind of got me into really crocheting. Um, so yeah, it's kind of been a weird path, but I got there. She and I used to just sit and crochet and we would binge like The Sopranos and Grey's Anatomy. And I used to always go through her scrap balls of yarn and steal them. And then one day she was like, go get your own yarn. It's just go get your own. So my ugly blanket has this one big chunk around the sides that you can tell is like one skein, and you're like, yep. That's when I had to suck it up and I bought my first yarn.
What happened next? What was your next kind of foray in
It was
crochet?
really it was really neat because like after I started like more avidly crocheting, I was working with my grandfather. We were working like in a garage at the time, and he was there. And I don't know if I made something or did something, but he knew that I was a crafty person. So he said to me, I was going through Nanny stuff. I have all of her stuff, and I want to just, I want you to have it because nobody else does anything with it. And it was the most awesome and gut wrenching at the same time feeling in the whole world. Because, like, I remember my grandmother made these blankets for like my aunts and uncles, like my mom and her siblings. And they were, you would take three strands of yarn, like three different balls of yarn, and pull them together and use a really big hook. So you'd make like a bulky blanket before they had like plush yarns. And when I went through the bag, like the three big garbage bags my grandfather brought me, the balls of leftover yarn that was like, it was like a white ball with like one weird red streak through it. And I was like, what is this? And then I saw it was three strands and it was like the ball from that. And I was like, oh my God, like I have her scraps. Like I have her scraps. It's so cool. And I actually took her yarn that I got, and then I crocheted a blanket for my mom. And I thought that that was like the coolest generational thing ever. Like, grandmother's yarn and daughter made it. Like, that's so cool. Like, I don't know. I don't know. And like all the stuff I found like a tree skirt that she had managed to get all the way down to like where you would start adding a border. And I like actually ended up pulling out like a chunk of stitches where she just stopped for the day. And I pulled it out to like the end of the row and I knotted it off and I just left it. And that's my tree skirt I use every year. And like there's all these like weird works in progress. Like she had a pink dishcloth she had been making out of cotton, and it's just in there halfway through the border, like in the bag. And like I found all these super cool old projects and all these like awesome yarns and things. And it's really neat to like have that connection to like she was like my mom because my mom and I didn't have a really great relationship. So like me and Nanny had this thing, and like, it was so cool to just have that. And like now I kind of channel her when I do it because I'm like, I see you. I see you. I get it.
Does it help you feel more connected with her?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I totally see it. And like I totally I think I have her vibe. Like if I knew her now as an adult, like that would be like the most stellar thing ever. Like it would be so cool because she like just that weird old lady, like the embarrassing grandma that would like be dragging her foot on the carpet to pick up pet fur and like lean over to pick it up and fart and you'd be like, "Oh my God," like but then just sit down and see her in her chair with her stuff and just be like, "Oh my God, like I see it. I get it. Like, man, I miss you." Like, it's crazy. It's so neat.
That's really great that you're going to be able to continue the legacy. Do you think
Yeah,
you'll like leave behind scraps maybe for your
I
kids?
don't know. I actually I tried to teach my 11-year-old to crochet a couple weeks ago, and it didn't go well at all. It was terrible. She couldn't figure out how to hold tension, and she was trying to hold her hook like pencil grip style instead of I hold it knife grip. So like I couldn't see how she was doing it. She couldn't see how I was doing it. We just started feuding, and it was bad. It was bad. So I'm hoping that maybe she picks it up. Maybe there's like maybe she gets into like the micro or something, or she sees something that catches her and I teach her and she learns to go about it a different way. I'm not sure, but I hope that it sticks. I know that all of my kids and my boyfriend and like everybody around me that knows I do it, they all have things that I've made. Like I just made a hat. I was wearing it to my one friend's house and she's like, "Oh my God, I love your hat." And I just gave it to her. And she was like, "What?" I was like, "Dude, I just made this like 2 hours ago and like whatever, like here you can have it." And like so it's neat because like all of my friends have something and like it just kind of makes me feel like I'll be around, like they'll see
Yeah.
it one day and be like, "Oh my God," like yeah.
They'll always have something to remember you by.
I know. And then I just found these tags you can buy now because like that's all new to me buying tags and labeling your stuff.
Mhm.
But there's these tags that says like this took forever to make and you better use this and stuff like that. And like, I think those are hilarious. Like I want those snarky tags. Like I do. I need that.
Are you like sewing them into your finished products before you give them away?
Well, I haven't bought any yet, but that's what I want to do. I guess some people put them on like the brims of hats with like those rivets or,
Mhm.
or they sew them on the inside and stuff. So like I'm gonna get some and figure it out.
That'll be great. And then we've talked earlier, you do other kind of art too, right?
I do. I do. I watercolor paint, which kind of is like a weird thing. Like I can't just sit and do it. Like I have to be inspired to the point where it's eating me in the inside. Like I have a prime example here, and I actually have the painting over here. I'll go get it and show you. But my boyfriend and my daughter and I were watching this anime series called My Hero Academia. And we were watching the opening scene the one day, and it was just like where the credits are scrolling and stuff's moving. And I saw this picture and I was like, I have to paint that. Like I have to paint that. And it ate my brain alive. And I tried to find a still image of this intro on the internet, and I couldn't find it and couldn't find it. I ended up watching the show, pausing the TV, taking a picture, going up and printing out to scale, and like actually painting it. Here, I'll grab it real quick. Hold on. I'm not sure if there will be a glare on this or not, but try to.
Oh yeah, you sent me a version of this. Oh, that's so cool. That's so
That's
accurate.
pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that I'm 100% an artist, because it does, like, I use a light board to show some stencil lines and stuff. So like it's not all freehand, it's not all perfect, it's whatever, but it's just something that I do. Like I get a bug and I'm like, ooh, gotta get it, you know. I
How
do
does
that
that,
with everything. Go
sorry,
ahead.
how do you feel with crochet though? When you're doing crochet, how does that make you feel in contrast?
um Crocheting is much more lets you be absent. Like I do that too with art. Like you get into, like, I'll play a playlist and I'll just be into it, just doing it, and you get lost in it. But crocheting is more structured, I guess. So there's not any pressure to make it good. I don't know, that's not the right way to say that, but when you're making art and it's all open lines and things, you do something one hair wrong and you could see it. There's a lot of pressure to get it right, which is why I don't paint as much as I would like to paint. But crocheting, you're like, hook in the hole, you make your stitch, and that's that. And if you don't like it, you pull that string out, you do it over again. It's very, like, painting is really hard to take that back. It's different. And with crocheting, it's very methodical, maybe the way you're like, 1 2 3 increase, 1 2 3. You count, you're in it, you're watching, you're thinking about your project. And it helps me to zone out. Like, I have 3 kids, I got a dog, I got a boyfriend, I got a TV, I got tablets going. And when I get overwhelmed with all of that, I'll just be sitting there, just in my world. So it helps me to tame the noises and be more focused in on, the concentration of what it takes. Now, there's not to say that I sit there to turn or something else, but it's much more, like I said, like methodical, I think would be the best way to put it.
Do you typically tend to follow other people's patterns or do you tend to freehand?
Depends on what I'm scratching for. Um, like, okay, we'll talk about amigurumi here for a second. When my boyfriend had decided he wanted a big chunky blanket, and that was kind of the thing we were seeing a lot of on the internet, and he was like, I want one of those. So I bought some of the Bernard blanket, big plush yarn, and made him a big blanket. And I happened to be scrolling on TikTok one day and I saw this girl making a little bat plushie. And I was like, I have leftover black yarn. And I just picked up a hook and I made like a body and a head. And I never did amigurumi. I just know when you make a hat, I know how to increase, I know how to decrease. So I just did it. And I made this super wonky, weird looking bat, and I sewed buttons on for eyes. And my kid thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And that spurred me going into amigurumi. Um, I did buy patterns and I do buy patterns, especially if it has something that I want. Like if I really like those specific wings, or I really like that specific something or other, or how did they make that body so perfectly shaped, or something like that. But I do freehand, especially like we were really slow at work one week, a couple weeks ago, and I took embroidery floss and like a bee hook. It's like a 2.5, and I just sat there and I made a little moose, and he's only about yay tall, but I just made him just in there, just freehand, trying with increases and decreases and shifting where your stitches are. And I just it just depends on what it is. If I want something that I know what the result is going to look like without thinking, I'll buy a pattern. But if I'm just messing around on the couch for something to do, I'll be like, let's see what we can do.
For people listening, we actually did talk a little bit before this talk, and one of the things that came up is that Bree has a really cool job.
I don't know if
And
I'd
so
say it's cool, but
I think
okay.
it's really cool. I like when she mentioned this to me, I like sat straight up and I was like, wait, really? So I wanted to take some time to talk about that. Bree, could you tell me about your job and how you got into it?
Okay. So way back in the day, in my early 20s, because I'm so old now, I got married and I had a kid and we moved away, and we actually moved like 200 miles away. We moved from we lived like northeast Pennsylvania down to like central, south central Pennsylvania. And my marriage went south and things got bad, and my parents, of course, are up home. So I came home, and I literally, it's like the smallest town in Pennsylvania. It's a little tiny blip on the map. There's nothing here except this foundry. Um, it's like the Benton Foundry. I actually almost wore my Benton Foundry t-shirt today. That's funny. But I went in there one day and I was like, this is kind of like a labor job. I can't really have to be needing an education. So I'm just going to put my name in here and see what happens. And they hired me, and I was working in what they call the core room, which is basically if you are making, oh wait, before I get into that, the foundry is a metal casting foundry plant, whatever factory, whatever you want to call it. We melt down metal into big, they call them ladles, and then we pour it into sand castings and we make metal parts. So when I first started, I was in the core room. I made sand pieces that would make the insides hollow of these parts. And then I hated it. It was terrible. Like the fumes in there, and it was dusty and hot and stinky, and it was just awful. I hated it. And these girls that I worked next to was so funny. They all wear leggings, like LuLaRoe leggings, these skin tight, thin leggings. And I can't tell you how many times I have bled through like work pants. Like I wear like
Oh, wow.
mechanics pants, and these girls are wearing leggings. I think they're crazy. But um a couple weeks into it, the manager came to us and he said, the grinding department is behind and they need help. So you're going to go over there and you're going to help. And the one girl looks at me and she's like, it's fine. You're going to be in this place they call the cage. It's fine. I'm like, what is the cage? And she told me it's basically like a work table, and it has all of these like air tools on the show on the walls, and you go in and you basically pick a part up from over here, put it in front of you, clean it up, do the grinding on it that it needs, and then you throw it down to the next guy, and then they do the next part and whatnot. So I started up there and I was like, man, this is so much better than this sand. This is so much better. You feel so tough. You're holding this big metal part. You're holding these like chisels and you're like, you know, you just feel tougher. I don't know. And I'm looking, and there's literally like 50 men. And there's like, at that point, when we were back there that day, there was like 10 or 12 women. But when they all left, there's no women back there. There's one, and she's kind of the token woman that like, oh, that's Sherry, that's Sherry. So nobody ever really even thought about it. But I went back and I subbed for that one day, and I was hooked, like hooked. And I talked to like all three of the floor managers, and then I went to HR and I went to everybody, and I was like, can I stay? Can I please stay? Please, 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 can I stay? And they all let me. They were like, wow, sure. Like 6 months go by and I'm still up in the cage. It's like I would call it the detailing department. It's the like if you're looking at a nut and a bolt, you know, like a round ring,
Yep.
I would be responsible for the inner circle,
Okay.
because how else would you reach it unless you had something detaily to get inside? So I would be responsible for that. And then the next department or the next section of grinding is the outside edges. And then there's like the automated robots, and there's also the cleaning machines. So there's like different stations back there. So I started in this cage department, and then I just offered the bosses one day. I said, hey, you know, I'm pretty good at this. I think, you know, if you ever need help outside of here, like I could help you. So the one day they put me on this other machine, which is, they call it stationary, and it's this big round wheel that spins in front of you and you have to hold. And then I did that for 6 months. And then they put me on the cleaner machines, which is basically a big rock tumbler, like a big cylinder. You fill it with parts, spin it around a bunch of times, and they blast it with shot, which is basically like BBs,
Oh,
for
wow.
lack of a better word. But they blast it with these BBs and it cleans all the sand from the molding department. It cleans it all off and then parts are all shiny silver then. And then they get delivered off to the grinding departments. So I've been at the foundry now for almost 3 years. And by the end of my second year, I was at running one of the automated robot machines, like king of the grinding room. And I don't know if you could tell, but I'm like 5'2" and like and like I work in this department where the parts are 200 pounds. You
Wow.
know, I swing a hammer all day long. I just had to have carpal tunnel surgery, which sucked for not being able to crochet.
Oh, I bet.
But yeah, my hands were done for a while. So it's sometimes it's really hard too because where I work, I get very, very dirty. So
Right.
when I come home, I can't crochet until I like get a shower.
Right.
So like, if we come home and do the, I just want to sit down for a minute, then I'm like looking at it like, oh, I just want to pick it up, and I can't because my hands are still too dirty, and so it's kind of funny.
That's really cool, though. That's like a pretty varied interest. Are there any other things that you do with your time?
I do garden in the summertime, and I'm really weird. I don't really think that's like a pastime, but like generally speaking, I'm entertaining just in being in presence of someone. Like my kids think I'm hilarious, and all my kids' friends are all like, "Oh, that's Brooke's mom," like everybody thinks is like so. I don't know. I try to make life enjoyable. Like you just have to find something in everything. Um, I crochet a lot. Oh, the other thing I do is those metal earth puzzles. I don't know if you've ever seen them at like
No.
Hobby Lobby or Michael's, but they are like metal, like sheet aluminum metal, and you bend them with tweezers up, and you make like um, what am I thinking? Models, like
Oh.
models. So I have a bunch of them. I made the Hogwarts. I just built the Hogwarts castle, and I built like a mail truck I got for Christmas, and like I have all these random weird metal puzzle things all over the house. But that's pretty much it. I paint, I crochet. Oh, I macramé, and now I'm learning to knit.
What inspired you to try knitting?
Not being able to knit.
You're like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna try.
Yeah. So I kind of mentally in my own head am constantly challenging myself. I'm like, you know what? I could do that. I could totally do that. You know what? Give me it. I'm gonna do it. Like so,
You're like, I'm gonna
it's
do the big machines at work. I'm gonna do this
yeah,
job dominated by men. I'm gonna crochet finally.
yeah, right. Oh, my kids are hi. Sorry, give me a second. Hi. Talking to my friend on the phone. You should go put your stuff away. Yeah, they just got here. I was
Um,
trying to hide in my room, but she sought me out.
I think that's very normal when you're a parent. How do you balance crocheting with like all the other things you have to do or want to do with your time?
Probably don't really well. There's probably lots of times I'm sitting on the couch crocheting and I should be doing something else, but I don't. But to be fair, I have found that like if I crochet like micro crochet, I just take it with me to the kitchen and put my spool of string in my pocket in
Mhm.
my bathrobe, and I just stand there and um sometimes it doesn't work well because I go to walk away and it's on the counter and strings in my pocket and I yank it off and swearing ensues or whatever. But it's really cool. Like come winter season, I start making hats and stuff. So like everybody always has a hat. They always get to pick like what they want. Started making plushies and stuff for them too. So it's cool. And the little one, I don't know if you really saw her or not, because I don't know what frame she was in
We
there,
saw
but
we saw a little bit of her. We saw her head. We saw she was
yeah.
blonde.
Yeah. She always comes up to me while I'm like doing something. Like I'll be sitting like this on the couch and she'll come up and go, "Me help you?" So she'll climb up and sit on my lap and like I'll hold it and I'll have her hold the hook and then I'll hold her hand and then we'll do it. And she'll sit there and sometimes she'll sit there longer than she cares to because she just won't leave. But she'll just sit there and then I'll be like, "Are you done now?" And she'll be like, "Mm-hmm." So maybe if I don't teach the bigger one, maybe I'll teach the little one and it'll be somebody knows.
And you never know. It sounds like, you didn't really quite click until maybe your like third time in the saddle, right? So,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So yeah, maybe. But as far as balancing time, it's tough because there's lots of times I should be doing the dishes or I should be folding the laundry and I'm obviously making, tails instead of like tails from Sonic, it's like Orange Buddy. Yeah, I'll be like crocheting him, making him out of embroidery floss instead of doing the laundry. But some days I give myself the you work a lot during the week, you work a 10-hour day in this hard job on your feet, like just crochet, it's fine. um and sometimes, like I make bread sometimes on the weekends, so it has to rise. So I'll go out in the morning and make the dough and put it in the bowl, and then I'll go out and crochet for a couple hours while it rises, and then I'll go out and I'll get it ready, and then I'll go back out and crochet while it rises a second time, and then I'll put it in the oven, and then we'll have fresh baked bread for dinner. So it's like it's cool filler sometimes when you need filler, like you're like, I don't know what to do with myself right now. Or if like the adult man child is playing video games on the TV and the two kids are playing on their tablets on the floor, and I'm like, well, I guess I'll crochet.
right.
So it's kind of balanced everywhere.
What do you don't typically do with all your finished projects? Because I'm sure you've had a lot over the years.
You would think that, but actually I was thinking about it. It wasn't until like the last 3 or 4 years that I really started pumping out projects. Um, a lot of the things that I've made more recently have been kind of like commissioned.
Mhm.
They haven't really been commissioned necessarily, but it's been things that I purposely made for other people. So, not for me that got whatever. Um, but like I know my kids all have stuffed plushy things now and they're just around, and there's hats and scarves and bags in the closet and they're all like made by me. They're just like in the closet. So you could come to my house at any given time and be like, "Do you have a spare hat?" And I would be like, "Absolutely, here you go." Like
Do you see yourself ever like selling these things at like a farmer's market or a crafter's market?
I've thought about it, but I know there's a lot of debate about pricing and whatnot. And honestly, it makes sense to me because if I was to go to anywhere and see somebody selling a hat for $50, I'd be like, yeah, okay. But on the flip side of that, when I just sat and I made like my boyfriend's blanket, um, it cost me $75 in yarn, and then it took me hours and hours to make it. So like I get it from both sides. So it's really a tough thing. I actually did the math the one day. There was a lady who said she charges a penny per stitch.
Mhm.
And I thought that's cool. Like let's think about that. His blanket would be like $120. That's not so bad. But then I made a doily out of thread and it was like this big, like
Right.
6, 7 inches, and it was 4,256 stitches. So that would have been a $50 doily. So
Right.
like like it's tough to price things, especially if you're looking to move them. If you did it by commission, maybe like where somebody said, if you will you make me this, I'll give you $20, or
Hmm.
however. I've also done things like for friends where it's just been you buy the yarn, you go pick it, you buy it, and I will make you whatever it is, so that they understand that it's not just I'm trying to be a jerk. Like I need 6 skeins of that if you want me to make you a sweater or
Right.
whatever. So like I'm gonna need a lot, and then they're like, "Man, this costs like $100." Like Why do you think I charged you $100? I do, or had an Etsy, and I still cross stitch. And I made like super inappropriate cross stitches and I sold them on Etsy for a while and they actually sold very well. Um, a little 3x5 like framed picture, and it said on it, please don't do Coke in the bathroom. And then I would like embellish them with flowers and stuff. But
Right.
I would let them be commission based. Like they would order it off the thing and I would tell them, what color flowers? Do you want flowers or swirlies or grass, or do you want a
Right.
bumblebee, or what would you like on it that it fits your decor? And they all gave me good reviews.
You not do it anymore?
Well, that was something I had done with my husband when I was married.
Oh,
And
okay.
so when we got divorced, it was more about like me finding stability in my life again. And I haven't really gotten back to where I'm opening Etsy, although it has been discussed recently because I have been quite crafty.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us today?
Um, I don't really think that there's anything specific, although I do think that the crocheting, it really does center me. Like there's a lot of times where I'll get like, you know, I have like, our mental instabilities, anxiety, depression, any of those things. Anybody that has any of those things, this is something that you could totally just like get lost in.
Yeah.
And I saw another girl on TikTok who said something about this, and I think she's absolutely right. She said, everybody will tell you to start on a granny square, start there. And then you're like, great. So I made one. And then they're like, make 100 more and come back. And no, you're never going to do it again. And she said, start with amigurumi. Every row is different, but it's all the same stitch. And everything you do, you get a little plushie. And you're like,
Right.
ha, ta-da. So, I, not to go directly to that, what she said, but I think that approach to anything art related is the beautiful way to go. Like watercolors, I probably don't do it the way you're supposed to. I
Right.
probably don't embellish things the way you're supposed to. I don't even know if I technically crochet the way you're supposed to, but it's what I do. It's how I do it. It's what I do. There's no wrong way to art. That's the way I look at it. I say that all the time to my kids, everything. Like, there's no wrong way to art. If you stuck that there and you call it art, high five. Like, so if you want to freehand some kind of oddball, ugly ass sweater, high five, go for it. And you know what? You got that rage out of your head. You refocused yourself. You were counting stitches. You brought that rage, adrenaline rush, that shaking you had. You calmed yourself, and you made something hideous and amazing at the same time. It's glorious. It's glorious. Run with that, and don't think about these patterns and perfection and whatever. If you like it, do it. Do it.